Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. So today's guest is someone that I've known for quite a while. We completed our coaching accreditations through the ICF together. Leanne's journey through mental health nursing, supporting people through addiction and trauma, and now navigating her own next chapter is a story about courage, change, and knowing when to draw new boundaries. So, Leanne, for listeners who don't know you like I do, can you please just give us a short intro about your background, your story, and what's brought you here on this new chapter?
Yay. So, hi, look, thanks for having me on. I've got my cat Echo with me, so it may appear across the screen at some point. So, my name's Leanne. I live in Edinburgh in Scotland. I'm a mental health nurse, but I specialise in alcohol problems. And I live at home with my two cats, Echo and Olly. I suppose my kind of alcohol journey started when I started working, in the job I'm currently doing. But obviously, personally, it impacted me from years ago. I did do the coaching course, as Luke said. We kind of worked together a few years ago, and I did start a coaching business, specialise in alcohol problems, but recently I've decided to step away from that at the moment, just due to other factors in life, which I'll probably go on to talk about later on anyway in this podcast. So I'm excited to be here. A bit anxious as to what you're going to ask me. And I've got my support cat here with me.
You mentioned there about alcohol having an effect when you were younger, Leanne. What did you mean by that?
So it was thankfully, I've never personally had alcohol as being an issue directly for myself. As normally, people do when you're younger, you go out and you enjoy yourself, you have a few drinks, but it was never something that took a grip. And my mum was an incredible woman. She went into becoming a teacher later on in her life, and we were just super proud of her. And then started realising that she was drinking. She was drinking a bit much socially. Whenever she was out with friends, she always just took it that step further. And then we were aware that she was drinking quite a lot during the week. So sadly, in 2004, she was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver, and 2 months later, she sadly passed away. Now, at that point, I didn't know what cirrhosis was. I didn't know the impact that alcohol could have such a devastating consequences for people. You're never told these things. And so obviously losing my mum was just devastating. And we lost our dad just 10 weeks before that with cancer. So it was such a surreal time. And I always think back and think it's one of those times where you could easily go down that path of, drinking or doing things to try and get yourself through it or to block out the pain. But I suppose for me, thankfully, I took the other path of just determined to live my life. And so I did. I just got on with life. I started to, take opportunities and retrained. I worked in the Scottish Government for 21 and a half years, retrained, did my mental health nursing. And after a year working as a community psychiatric nurse, the job in alcohol liaison came up and something just struck a chord. I thought, this is it. This is what I'm meant to do. And I suppose it was bittersweet because I then learned so much now that I wish I'd known back then, because I feel I potentially could have steered my mum in a different direction. I would have had the knowledge to know actually what was going on with her physically. So as much as I love the job I do, there's always just that wee tinge of wished I'd known all this before. But it then got me on that path of, right, okay, I have the knowledge now. I need to use that knowledge to help as many people as I can. So I do that through my job in the NHS. But that's why I'd also started doing the coaching.
How old was your mum, if you don't mind me asking, when she died?
Yeah, she was 56, which is
56.
nothing at all. I mean, I'm 54. So, I'm approaching the age where my mum was no longer here. And that feels quite surreal because I feel I've got years and years ahead of me to do lots of things. The thought of just having another 2 years of living is quite terrifying. So it was heartbreaking. I was 32 when I lost my mum and dad. So it changes you. It does change you, and it makes you see the world in a different light and makes you want to live life differently. So that's what I try and do.
So that was a real crossroads in your life. You think from then you were going to be not drinking. Did you have a drink? So were you drinking much before that, or do you think after witnessing that it put you off?
Not really. I mean, I used to work behind the bars. I worked in the Scottish Government, but I also had a wee part-time bar job, so I could pay for car, my car and holidays and things like that. And so it was never something that was a huge thing in my life. I wouldn't think about going on a night out and be concerned about, oh, I can't wait to have a drink. It was never ever that. I would go and just want to catch up with my friends. And most of the time, if I went into town, I'd take the car to make sure that I got myself and my friends home safely. So it's never been something that has been a priority. And most of the time, if I was out, I would take the car. And I mean, now I think it's probably 2 years since I actually had a drink. And it's not even a conscious thing. It's just something that's not really on my radar. And I don't need it. It's not something that I feel that I need to relieve a stressful day, to help me relax, to socialise, to celebrate, to reward myself. I don't need it for anything like that. Really grateful that that's the position I'm in with it.
And for the listeners that don't know you like I do, I've heard your story on other podcasts as well. You've had issues with drink and drugs as well with your ex-partner.
Yeah.
From what I can remember, Leanne, do you mind sharing a bit about that as well, please?
Yeah. I mean, that was a horrible time. So it was my ex-husband. And when we first met, you know, yeah, I thought he was this lovely Italian. And I suppose, I was quite blinded by him initially. And he told me he didn't drink. So I was like,
Was he a
amazing.
chef? Was he a chef? Is
Yeah.
that right? Yeah.
Yep. And then I think it was probably about a year. In fact, it was probably after we were married that I then started the sort of drugs thing came up, and he was taking cocaine. And we had a restaurant together. We opened a restaurant, and he would be the one that would be at the restaurant most of the time. I'd be working in the government. And there was just, problems were kicking in. And I think his dealer was up in the place where the restaurant was, and which was about an hour's drive from where I am. So I think there was a lot of doubt, and I stopped trusting him. There was a lot of lies. It was horrible. And then, but I still at that point didn't think that alcohol was an issue. But then again, I realised that it started to creep in and became more obvious. So he was somebody that was very good at hiding it. And he worked away a lot. He worked on the cruise ships. Because we had the restaurant for about a year, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. So he started getting the job on cruise ships. He'd be away for 5 months at a time. And then, but he was losing jobs. He was always losing jobs. And I would think, how on earth can you get through so many jobs? But I suspect strongly it was the alcohol that was losing him these jobs. And we were together 9 years, but I think the majority of that relationship, he worked away. So that's when I realised actually my life is so much nicer when he's not here, because there's no drama. He's not bringing chaos to my house. And it just came a point, I thought, I can't do this anymore. So he was caught drink driving on a sort of powerful sports motorbike. That was horrible. He would gamble. He would disappear uptown. He'd pawn things. So I'd be trying to get hold of him, and he would have pawned his phone to get money to gamble or buy alcohol. And so you were just in this cycle of, you didn't know what was going to happen next, and there was times where I dreaded coming home because I would come in and he was either not here and I'd think, oh God, where is he? Or he would come in and he'd been drinking, but would deny it. And I was like, I know you've been drinking, but it's that denial and the lies and the gaslighting. So you start to then doubt yourself. You think, well, am I just making this up? Am I seeing things that aren't there? So I think, it came a point where I thought, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore, and I'm not prepared to do it. And he did, I tried to get him help. I made him go to the GP. But really, I think, and again, probably knowing what I know now, it has to be the person himself that wants to do it. And he didn't think he had a problem. So knowing now, I went to the GP with him, and I'd went to a recovery hub with him for the cocaine. And I remember saying to the guy, you need to stop him from doing this. This has destroyed my life, and the guy's saying to him, so what are the benefits of you taking cocaine? I'm like, what do you mean benefit? There's no benefits. I just
Sure.
was again, so naive thinking, well, you must be able to tell him not to do this, not realizing now that actually that's not the way you go about it. And that's not the way it's done. It has to be the person that does it. Sadly, I believe he's still drinking, and he's still, worse, he's actually drinking more than he was when I knew him. So things have not got any better. And that's been a long time since we've been together.
Mm. Was that so? You were together 9 years, you said.
Yeah.
Was it a slow burner with the alcohol and the drugs and stuff, or
Yeah.
was it, or was it really, was it from the get go, or?
No, because I honestly didn't think he drank. And because any socialising we did, he never had a drink. He always had a juice. And so yeah, you're led into this false sense of security. And he went away and applied for a job in Norway. No discussion with me about it. He just applied for this job, told me the following day, went for the interview and got the job. So he moved to Norway, but every month he would come back. And when I'd pick him up off the flight, he had been drinking. And I was like, well, this is new. I've not seen this before. And again, he would just deny he'd been drinking, but it was so obvious, his behaviours and the way he spoke and, the glazed eyes, I knew that he'd obviously been hammering it. And then when I'd go over to Norway to see him, he'd meet me off the bus. And again, I knew he'd been drinking. So I think when he came back from Norway, he stayed in Norway for about a year. I think when he came back from Norway, it then felt like things had really cranked up a gear. And whether it was just because he had had the freedom to be able to drink more when he was away, that he then became a bit more dependent on it. So when he was back, things just were falling apart rapidly. And, he pawned a diamond ring of mine that I'd bought for myself. I treated myself to a nice ring, and he pawned it. And I never got it back because I was at uni studying. So, I was a student. And so when the ticket came through the door, he was working away on the ships at that time. And I said to him, is this my ring? Because I'd said to him, I've lost my diamond ring. And he was blaming me. Oh, well, you've probably put it down somewhere. And I'm saying, no, it's normally where I would leave it. And he denied it. And I said, look, if this is my ring, you need to tell me so I get the chance to get it back. And he admitted it was my ring, but sadly I couldn't get it back. So things like that, you never expect to be with somebody that's going to do things. And so I sometimes wonder, were there other things in the house that he's maybe taken and pawned because he clearly had no conscience, and was able
No.
to do that quite easily.
And the relationship must be built on honesty.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's one
I
of the
mean, he would
pillars,
even,
right?
yeah, there was one Christmas day, and again, I'd said to him, I had a wee Bucks Fizz in the morning, and I says, do you want to have a drink? And he was like, no, I'm just going to drink cola. And I was like, all right, okay. So through the course of the day, I kept saying to him, are you wanting to have a drink? No, I don't. And then, yeah, it's like mid-afternoon, I was like, he's a bit pissed. And I says to him, have you been drinking? He was like, no, I'm just having cola. But there was a bottle of rum hidden in the cupboard. And so he'd been topping up in the course of the day, pretending me was just drinking cola. You think, well, I'm going to notice these things. But I used to find empty whiskey bottles hidden in the garden, just horrible, in cupboards, and just, yeah. And knowing now, I realise that that's quite a red flag, you know.
Definitely, for sure.
Yeah,
We've, you mentioned earlier, uh, a bit about moving away from your own coaching business, Leanne.
yeah,
And I've spoke to you recently, I know, about burnout in your professional life. You
yeah,
mentioned that you work for the NHS as well
yeah.
with alcohol. What was the moment that you realized you needed to make change? What did that decision feel like when you were wanting to step away and just concentrate? on your work with the NHS?
Yeah, it's been quite tough because I suppose I set up the coaching about a year past August, and I was so excited to do it. I was determined, right? I've done my coaching accreditation. I want to run with the skills I've learned. I feel I've got a lot that I can offer. And so I launched my wee business and yeah, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed putting content out. I hated doing the whole video thing. I think the first video I put out of me talking in it, I did about 100 takes. It was just, that never sat comfortably with me. But I enjoyed,
Imposter syndrome.
absolutely. And I was always very critical. I was like, "Oh, I've not got a top lip. I can't see my top lip. I might need to get fillers in." So I started just being really critical of myself when I saw myself on video. And but I enjoyed the learning process of different ways I could get content out to people. So that part of it I really enjoyed. And so I think for the first year, probably the first year and a half, I was able to sort of sustain that and put content out quite a bit. But it came a point last year where we were really short staffed practically the whole year. And you keep trying to,
Yeah. Yeah, you try to
and
push on through. I
you,
had I had a burnout coach on a while back, Lisa Spencer, and she was saying exactly the same. We always just try and push on through, and that's the worst thing that we can do.
yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I've realized that I'm somebody that I'll go through, difficult times in life, and I quickly just, I'm like, that's fine. I'm fine now. Let's just move on. And I've realized that I do that, and so I think it became like that because I did the coaching course just after I'd lost my auntie, and my auntie was like a second mum to me. And I took on the coaching, I did Reiki, I did NLP, I did hypnotherapy, I did all these courses and just had a crazy year. And then set up my business. And so I realized that for the last couple of years, I've literally not stopped. I've tried to build this other future in this own business so that, life's too short and you have to, do things. And it was probably getting towards the summer last year, and I was going away to Malaga to do my Reiki 2 training. And I remember at the time thinking, oh God, I so need this break. And I went away and I was there for a week, and it was amazing because it was all just very much relaxing and, working on yourself. And it was just amazing. And then came back and right back into my job where short staffed, just constantly kept going. And then I noticed that I wasn't really doing the things that I enjoy doing. So I gave up the gym because the thought of getting up on a Saturday morning early to go to the gym when I was so tired. So I stopped doing all those things. I felt I pulled back from a lot of my friends, just the thought of even meeting up with people. I just felt when I finished work, I just wanted to get home and relax. The thought of having to engage with other people. And I probably stopped posting as much online. And so the last 6 months, I realised that actually I've not been engaging much with the alcohol side of my business, and work has taken sort of priority, which is fine because I mean, I love my job, I really do enjoy what I do because it is still in the alcohol field, but it was tiring when, there's less of you doing the job.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
You can
think
only split yourself so many ways.
absolutely, absolutely. So more recently, it's strange, but I've realized that over the last few years, I've just not stopped. And I've realized,
I remember, Leanne, sorry to interrupt you, but I remember each time I spoke to you, each time we had a catch up, you were doing another course. And
yeah,
I kept saying, God, you're doing so much.
yeah,
How do you do it? How do you fit it all in? And obviously your job with the NHS, the alcohol and addiction
yeah,
recovery side is very, very stressful, very, very demanding.
yeah. And that's the thing. And I think it was quite nice to realize that actually maybe it's okay to let something go. I think you get that whole determination of or that fear of failure. I don't want to be seen as a failure because I'm giving this up. And that probably for the past 6 months has preyed on my mind. I don't want to be seen to be a failure. And people are saying, oh yeah, she launched this business and then she's not doing it anymore. So there was that was kicking in. I didn't want to be seen as somebody that had just given up. And so that, I think I've wrestled with that for the last few months. But more recently, I just decided that actually being in employment isn't bad. I love my job. I love the people I work with. The hospital is close to where I live. And I just enjoy so much about it. I enjoy the patients that I meet. Um, yeah, it's stressful. There's times when it is really stressful. It is frustrating. And you come away and you get home and I don't want to speak to anybody because I'm I've given so much and sometimes I just need to sit and process. Um, and I get money coming in at the end of the month. I know how much money's going to come in. Whereas I suppose that risk of when you're self-employed or doing your own thing, that's you're always trying to, you're always trying to get people to work with you, and that's an added pressure. So I decided just to I'm going to be shutting down the Facebook group that I've got, which I've really enjoyed, and the people that have been in it have been amazing, and but I've just decided I need to just step back and focus on me for a while, and I can have an interest without feeling like I need to turn it into a business, which I'd got into that mindset for a while. All right, if I do this, then I can have a coaching and healing business. I'll do Reiki, I'll do this, do that. And I thought, well, actually, it's okay to have the Reiki as an interest and explore it and do it for me. I don't have to always feel like I've got to turn it into something. So
Mm.
I think since I've realised that, I actually feel a lot more settled. I feel I've become alive a bit more, and it's a lovely feeling. I feel like I'm getting myself back because I think last year I feel I had definitely lost myself. I was turning into somebody that I didn't like. I just felt that I was getting frustrated quite easily and getting annoyed quite easily, and that's just not me. That things were irritating me, and I realised that I just was, and I did have to have a period of time off work because of burnout. So, and that made me realise, my God, I've been burnt out. And again, it's not something I'd want to admit to because I never like asking for help. So I would never have spoke about it. I would have just carried on.
Yeah, I think many entrepreneurs, they fall into this trap. They go down many different rabbit holes. And
Yeah,
I know Stephen Bartlett talks about it a lot on the Diary of the CEO. A lot of us are being pushed or pulled in certain directions, and our ego can take over and we can get dragged here, there, and everywhere
yeah,
sometimes. And he always says that it's not quitting, you're just pivoting. So,
yeah,
and he has been one of the best, like one of the most well-known quitters of all time. He's quit so many different things, but it's knowing when to quit and when to pivot and
yeah,
move on. I think, I think in this whole hustle culture with entrepreneurs, uh, people, one of the big slogans is, don't quit, keep on going, keep your head down, push on through. But I think that's changing now. I think a lot of people are learning to pivot and to not burn themselves out, because so many people are burning themselves out by
yeah,
going down these rabbit holes. And I think a lot of people are waking up and thinking, where the hell am I? I forgot who I am. I don't even know
yeah,
where I am. I don't even know what I'm doing now. And their old identity is gone.
yeah. No, definitely. And I think what I quite like now is I come home from work. So I leave things at work and I leave work and I come home and I'm back to being me again. Whereas before I was coming home, I was reading about alcohol, I was online creating content. My life just never had a break from alcohol. And as much as I enjoyed it, it starts to take its toll because I realised that actually I need to be doing other stuff. I need to be reading other things. But I felt, well, I can't read just a normal book. I need to be reading a coaching, motivational book because then I can pass on skills to my clients. And so I've got all these coaching books that I swear to God, I think I've read the first chapter. I mean, I could probably sell them and earn about 10 grand. So, So it's ridiculous because, again, I think when you're in that world, you get bombarded with recommendations for books and get bombarded with people wanting to sell you their program, and that all became tiring. I was getting fed up with people promising me that they could get me, clients that would pay me 10 grand for my 12-week program, and it was just, this is ridiculous. It became too much.
Yeah, those echo chambers, and when those algorithms get their claws into you, it's mad. And every time you go on your phone, you're just being bombarded by all these different offers, and
Yeah.
and the marketing behind it all is crazy. And
Yeah, so that again, I think that all became, so I'm going to be trying to pull back from a lot of that as well, so as that my Facebook is filled with cats, you know,
uh,
and manifesting and tarot and all that kind of stuff rather than coaching stuff all the time because, yeah, you know,
you mentioned manifestation there, uh,
yeah,
Leanne, which brings me nicely on to my next question. We're
yeah,
both really big on manifestation. We've had many conversations over
yeah.
the years about manifestation. Can you share how that's played a role in your journey, especially recently, with manifesting your dream relationship?
Yes. So, because I remember us having conversations, and I know that, you're obviously big in manifesting, and I used to ask you to manifest me a man.
You did, yeah, I remember it.
Because I'm like, well, you do the work for me because
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
obviously
yeah.
really good at it. So yeah, I think it's just one of these things that I just had a real interest in. And I think the more you go down that rabbit hole, I think the more fascinating it is. And so, yeah, so I did go down that rabbit hole and just started reading more about it and just the sort of universal energy. And I suppose that's where the Reiki came in as well, that I just wanted to really embrace it all. And I did feel there was definitely a shift in the way that I started viewing things and thinking about the future. And sometimes it was quite comforting just thinking, the universe has got my back. Sometimes that was quite nice, and that would help me when I was maybe feeling a bit stressed about something. I would just say, "Well, the universe got my back. The universe knows what's good for me." And that really helped. And so, yeah, with Gary, so I mean, I've had some disastrous relationships. I mean, that could be a separate podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've just had some real crackers. And so when I split with my ex-husband, that was in 2017. So yeah, nearly 10 years now. And so yeah, I went on that whole Tinder, Bumble, swiping thing, which was just horrendous. Granted, there was a few nice guys, but there was a lot that yeah, it just
Yeah.
wasn't good. And so I was getting ready to give up with it because I was actually becoming more comfortable in my own skin, more comfortable just being me and enjoying life. And I thought, I actually just need to start doing things for myself. So I was getting ready to come off it all when Gary popped up. And
And
so I've said to you
and that's
earlier
what
that,
they say, don't they, so much. I know me
yeah,
and you, we both follow Matt Cook, and he's always
yeah,
saying about the surrender. And when you're coming from a place of lack and want, that's when your stuff's not gonna
yeah,
manifest. And when you release and let go, it all comes. And my
yeah,
God, there's so many examples that I can look back on myself where that has happened.
yeah,
Yeah, it really does. Like you just said, the universe has got your back.
yeah. And it actually, and I couldn't have asked for a better person in my life. I mean, I was just saying to you earlier that that's us been together a year. And it's just been the easiest year in a relationship. It's not been hard work because I'm used to relationships being really hard work and you're playing guessing games all the time, and whereas with Gary, it's been really lovely. And yeah, we're kind of both on this journey together as well. And, I think I talk to him about manifesting and he's got an interest in it. I'm getting there with him.
You're working on him, yeah? You're breaking him down. Yeah. My wife's the same. My wife's the same, Leanne. Yeah, I've been harping on about manifestation for years, and she still thinks I'm completely mental.
I'm like, if we both do it, then it's double the power.
Yeah.
So it's nice because he's not somebody that laughs at me for doing this. He's actually
Yeah.
He
It's most
accepts me
important.
for the kinda kooky side, when I'm talking about tarot and Reiki and the universe and my angels and, he just totally embraces all that and it's lovely. So yeah, definitely a believer that manifestation does work.
Yeah. So with relationships, it's kind of common knowledge, isn't it? If you're gonna put out that needy energy, then you're never gonna
No.
attract people, are you? Because you're gonna become people are gonna sense it.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
when you were at school, people who were really needy, people who were really people knew it. It
yeah,
puts you off. Whereas as soon as you just relax and say, "I'm not interested in any," my
yeah,
my son, he's 15 and he's had a couple of girlfriends now, and I remember recently he was saying, when we first moved to the Isle of Man, he was really keen to meet new friends and get
yeah,
a girlfriend or whatever, and he was really struggling. And then I remember him saying, "Oh, I've had enough of that. I'm not gonna bother now." And then all of a sudden, they were everywhere. They were flocking, and I remember saying to him, I said, "There you go, mate. That's
yeah.
manifestation right there."
It's true, honestly, there's just something quite nice and comforting about it. Because I've actually because I knew you'd ask me about it, so I bought the Rhonda Byrne manifestation
Yeah,
cards,
the secret.
and
Yeah,
they're just lovely. Yeah, they're such nice cards, and it's nice just to pull one in the morning and kind of set that intention for the day. So yeah,
yeah.
everybody should manifest.
If anyone is skeptical about manifestation, which of course many are, what
Yeah.
what advice would you give to them, Leanne?
I think just start dipping into it, dip your toe into it, and even just try the simplest of things. There's something because I've got a couple of Rhonda Byrne's books, and so I have like a list in my purse that I carry about with 10 things that I would love to have in my life. So it's things like a holiday to New Zealand, my soulmate, which obviously and this has been in my purse for before I met Gary. So obviously I can tick off the soulmate, the one. But there's things like, I think there is one about having, a countryside retreat, yeah, New Zealand, having £1 million in the bank. So I've got this list of things and I just carry them about with me. And again, there's just something quite powerful about that. There's something quite powerful about feeling like I'm trying to navigate my own destiny. And I've got this wee list of things that I want to try and tick off with it. I've also got our Countdown to Riches,
Oh,
which
okay,
is
yeah,
that's a 21-day wealth attracting habits. So again, it's like daily things that you can do that are just so simple that again, it's about manifesting, wealth and abundance, which is obviously something that I'm trying to do. I've got the
yeah.
man, now I need the money.
Now you're on to the next thing. That's it. So much of it is about self-awareness, though, isn't it? I
Yeah,
think self-awareness plays such a big part in this whole self-development journey.
yeah. Oh, definitely. And I think it's recognizing when you do need to maybe ask for help because it's something I've never ever been good at doing. And I do just battle through. Whereas this past year has made me realize that actually I sometimes do need to just stop and take stock of what's going on and what support I do need. And if I do need help from somebody else, because I'm very much, yeah, things are fine and just getting on with it. But this past year has definitely made me realise that, it's okay sometimes to ask for help and it's okay to realise that you're struggling a bit and maybe just need to take some time out.
Give yourself that break.
Yeah, definitely. Because then you're always
Mm.
going to come out of it stronger. I feel now, especially after Christmas and just having a bit of a break at Christmas as well, I've come back even just in a different mindset. And I think that gave me the confidence to say, right, okay, I need to step back from the coaching because that's just not, that was a pressure I was putting on myself. And I didn't realise that. I didn't realise that it was me putting a pressure on myself. Nobody else was doing that. It was me. And I thought, why am I not being kinder to myself? Why am I, putting this pressure on that I need to keep going with this? And so that was lovely when I felt like I'd just gifted myself more space and more time for me, which is, yeah.
Why do you think you were putting the pressure on yourself, Leah?
again, I think it's that fear of failure, that fear of being judged by other people and saying, oh, look at her, she's given up. I think that was definitely the most forefront thing was, yeah, people judging me for failing. And that's always, I think, my biggest fear. I think anything I go into doing, it's that fear of failing, that fear of not being good enough. And I think that's something that I'm currently working on, is that fear of not being good enough, because it's something that does come into my life quite often. And it does stop me from doing things. You know, I'll want to do something and I think, oh, I'm not going to be any good at it. And then I pull back. So I'm currently doing a course called Life Without Limits, and it's through Ali Campbell. So he's an NLP hypnotherapist. So I'm
Yeah,
currently
remember you
doing
saying about
that
him before.
course. So I'm currently doing that course, and it's just, again, it's about building resilience. And there's so much. It's just started, so I'm working my way through that, and it's really interesting. And
That's
so
another course.
I know, of course, I know, but this
You're a
one is.
marketer's dream, you are.
I know, I know, I totally am, honestly.
I
That this
know.
one,
I know
it,
you are.
it
God.
wasn't very expensive, so yeah, it was quite a cheap one. But I felt I need something to get me over this fear of failure thing, because I know that that's holding me back. So yes, I'm
Yeah,
still working on myself, but I now have the time to do it, which is good.
yeah. It's. I think it's called the spotlight effect. We think that everyone's watching us, and obviously people
Yeah,
get very paranoid, don't they? But
yeah,
people have got their own problems. People got their own lives. People are so busy, but we
yeah,
still think everyone's watching us, don't we?
yeah.
And it's so common, but that's part of being human.
And I think when you're online, yeah, you don't appreciate that there's, you put something on and you think it's staying in everybody's top of their list for weeks. And every time they go on, they're seeing your face and your video, and you're like, oh God, this is just cringe. You're literally in a second and then you're gone. So,
Yeah, yeah. Everyone's got so like there's so many distractions in the world now, and everyone's just on to the next thing, on to the next thing. It's
yeah,
just yeah. You're forgotten very quickly.
I know.
Again, it's being egotistical, isn't it? It's thinking that we're that everyone's looking up to us, but they're not really. They're not.
Exactly.
People don't give a crap, really.
No. So, but it's quite nice because I feel I don't have that pressure now. We having to try and do a wee video, because it just used to make me feel sick, the thought of it. But I thought, people say you have to be present online, you need to do videos of you speaking. I'd be like, oh God, really? Do I have to? So it never felt like a natural thing for me to do. It was always quite uncomfortable.
Going back to your work, Leanne, in the
Yay.
NHS, in recovery, you've witnessed lots of people relapsing over the years, I'm sure, and struggling
Amazing.
after hitting rock bottom. What's the most compassionate thing someone can do for themselves after a setback when they relapse?
I always say to people not to beat themselves up. I think that's the biggest thing. People have this shame of relapsing again and speak negatively to themselves. I always say you have to speak with kindness, and use it as a point of reflection. When something goes wrong, look back and think, right, okay, what went wrong? What happened? What could I do differently the next time if the same situation cropped up? It's about using it and learning from it, rather than using it and beating yourself up about it, because that's when I think alcohol takes its grip. When you're in that low place and not feeling great, and alcohol's like, well, I can make you feel a bit better. No, whereas if you speak kindly to yourself and start and remember who you are and value yourself, I think it can be a bit more difficult for alcohol to, you know, to stomp back into somebody's life again. But I definitely always say to people, it's a blip, it's happened. Don't keep thinking about it and worrying about it and being shameful about it. Reflect on it and move on.
Learn from it and move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
speak, you've spoken before about the addictive voice. How do you recognize it in your own life? I say it's like a little devil on your shoulder or whatever.
Yeah.
And even outside of addiction as well, whether that's the cookie monster, whether that's, the trying to get you to eat the chocolate.
Yeah.
At the moment, since I don't drink alcohol anymore, I've really trying to plug in now to my diet. I'm really trying to get the best nutrition. I'm really, really feeling so much. I'm really feeling so much better from it. Um, but my wife still brings back loads of sugar and stuff into the house, and it drives me mad. And I keep saying to her, I don't want it, because if it's there, I'll eat it.
Yeah.
And she says, well, what about me? And I said, look, you're going to have to hide it.
Yep.
So she now hides her own food around the house from me, from me and the kids. But seriously, if there's biscuits there, I'll eat them. If there's chocolate there, I'll eat it. But when you take it out of the house, it makes a massive difference, doesn't it? It really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went off on a bit of a rant there.
I'm just imagining you going around and finding empty
Yeah,
biscuit wrappers in the drawers
yeah,
and behind the cupboards, and like I was finding empty whiskey bottles, empty chocolate wrappers in your sock
it
drawer.
is. It is. Yeah, yeah. If it's not alcohol, it's chocolate bars and biscuits. But yeah, nightmare, absolute
Yeah.
nightmare.
I mean, I always say to people to bring things into their conscious awareness, because a lot of the time, obviously, we're run by our subconscious. And your subconscious links alcohol in a positive light because you get that dopamine hit when you have a drink. So your subconscious is thinking, this is amazing. You have a drink. You feel great. I want you to be happy. I want you to feel good. So your subconscious mind then just runs that program. So that's why a lot of the time it becomes a habit. People get home from work, they pour that glass of wine. They sit down at 7 o'clock to watch their programs. They have that first beer. So people then it becomes a habit, and they're no longer consciously thinking about it. It's just a subconscious action. So I always say to people, try and bring it into your conscious awareness and then question it. Actually say, right, okay, why do I want to have a drink just now? What purpose is it going to serve? How am I going to feel when I have a drink? Could be the consequences? How am I going to feel tomorrow? Am I just going to have this one, or is it going to lead to more? Actually have that conversation and try and answer it, rather than just being an automatic thing that you do. And the addictive voice is something in a book by called Rational Recovery, by a guy called Jack Trimpey, and he talks about the addictive voice recognition technique. So when you hear that voice coming in, you give it a name, like the beast brain or the wine witch, and so you kind of use it then to have a conversation with it. And I think it can be really powerful, because then you're externalizing it to a certain extent. And
Making
also
it
people, and also people, if you had somebody in your life that damaged your health, that took your money, took your time, alcohol takes up so much time, damaged relationships, lost you your job, lost you your home, would you keep that person in your life? I mean, you just wouldn't. You'd tell them where to go. And I say, so why keep a bottle of liquid, a bottle of poison? Why give that the power to take all these things from you? And so it's starting to see it through different eyes. I'll say, don't see alcohol as the way you maybe used to view it, as something that at the end of the day helps you relax. Or when I go out, it helps me have confidence to socialise, or it's a reward if I've had a tough day. Start seeing alcohol through a different lens, where you're viewing it as something that takes from you, has damaged your health, has caused you to lose your driving license, has caused you to lose that relationship that you actually really valued, has stopped you going on those holidays because you're spending your money on alcohol and you're losing out on living your life. So start to view it differently, because again, it's socially acceptable. We see it on the telly, people drinking and normalising it. On the run up to Christmas, you've got all those glamorous adverts of the people with their glittery tops on in a rooftop terrace with their fancy cocktails and their fancy drinks. That's a tiny, tiny part. But what about the people that are, in hospital waiting on
not hear
a
about them.
liver transplant because alcohol has damaged their liver to the point where they need a new one or they'll die? I mean, that is the reality, and that's what I suppose I see every day in my job. I see the the kind of worst that alcohol does to people, and it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying, and I suppose that's another reason that for the past 2 years, I mean, I just choose not to drink
You see all
because
the
I
negative
see,
side of it.
yeah, I see the damage that it does, even people as young as 20. I mean, it impacts on every aspect of somebody's health. There's no part of the body that doesn't get impacted by alcohol. So it's trying to get people to see that and see it differently, look at it differently. Don't look at it as being something that is your friend, because it's always going to make you think it's your friend and it's there to help you. But at the end of the day, it's there to take everything from you.
Playing the tape forward is such a powerful tool. It's one
Yeah.
of the first tools that I always use with clients.
Yeah.
How is it going to end realistically?
Yeah.
And you got to think that in your conscious mind, because like you said, your subconscious mind that's running the program, that will keep on telling you, that
Yeah.
voice will keep on telling you that it's going to be great, and it's just looking for that dopamine. We're dopamine seeking
Yeah.
creatures, aren't we? And it's never going to end well. It
No.
really, really isn't.
I see people that are, we'll see people up, in their 80s that are in the hospital, and, we'll sometimes be asked to see them. But I always feel when you get people that are, in their sort of later years and looking back on their life and alcohol has literally taken everything from them, it's absolutely heartbreaking, because people have lost their kids, their partners, their husbands or wives, their homes, their jobs, and all they're left with is their alcohol. And it's just heartbreaking. So when I have somebody younger coming in, I'll say to them, you have the chance to turn this around. You can do something about it right now, because when we get older, we want to look back on our life and have lovely memories. That's what I think keeps you going when you're older. And I can imagine sitting in, my wee rocking chair with my blanket, doing my knitting and all my cats. Um, and I'm sitting there and you're looking back on life. You want to look back and remember the lovely holidays you went, the people that you met, the things you did, the jobs you did. You want to have those lovely memories. You don't want to look back and have regrets of, oh yeah, my marriage broke down because of my drinking, or I lost my job and I really enjoyed my job because of my drinking. Because we see it a lot. People that have been in quite high powered jobs have lost their job because of alcohol, which then if you've not got money coming in, you lose your home.
Mm, Yeah.
Before you know it, then you're just in this cycle where drink is the only thing that helps to just block everything out, because the reality of your life is so bad that you don't want to face it sober, you know?
I think alcohol and addiction is actually it's a lot bigger thing with high performers, with people who have
Yeah,
got, and society tells us it's not like that. It comes more from poverty and stuff, but it's actually the other way around. I think a lot of high performing people are under so much pressure, especially
yeah,
in these big corporate jobs. They drink heavily and they take lots of drugs, and
yeah,
it's a coping mechanism because of all the stress.
yeah. And I think as well, a lot of these jobs involve a lot of socializing, a lot of meeting up in hotels, and so there's that, I suppose, peer pressure as well of having a drink, because how would it look if you were just drinking a soft drink or having a cup of coffee, or and again, I think this is what gets really annoys me about society, is we still deem people that don't drink to be a bit odd, and there's still that pressure on somebody that if they decide they're not drinking, you get questioned of why you're not drinking. I think we need to stop doing that. We need to allow people to have their choice and celebrate them for that, and not actually give them a hard time because they're not wanting to, you know, drink to oblivion. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we're still a fair bit away from that being the case. But I mean, I do believe that younger people now are not drinking to the same levels, which is good. That's encouraging. Whether they're doing other stuff, I don't know. But I think it's definitely encouraging that alcohol is maybe not, is it like it was probably in Maddie when we were younger. It was quite a big thing. So yeah, I think we're a long way from actually being in a really good place, but I like to think that we will get there at some point.
Yeah, I think the tide's turning. Obviously, with
Yeah,
tobacco back in the day, it was the same.
yeah,
And the tide did turn, and now there's got to be stuff on packets. There's got to be warnings. People have got to be told. And I think that is happening with alcohol as well. I know in
Yeah.
Canada and Ireland, there's talk of it, stuff being put on the labels, not just a sign of drink responsibly, which is
Yeah,
uh,
I mean, that gets lost amongst all the other fancy packaging they have, and I think because we see people in the liver transplant assessment process as well, and every person I speak to, they'll say, I wished I'd known now what I knew then. Nobody tells you that alcohol is
criminal.
capable of doing this. And there's very much that myth of, oh, but the liver repairs itself. Yeah, it does to a certain extent, but it comes a point where you've got that permanent scarring, that permanent damage that there's no repairing that. So again, I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. And well, I was 32 and I had never really heard of cirrhosis or what it did, and was still naive until I started my job in the NHS. I still hadn't really grasped the severity. And again, being made aware of all the other parts of your body that alcohol impacts on. So it's not just the liver. Again, that was quite an eye-opener for me. And I think, well, yeah, I was in my late 40s when I discovered all this. So you think, well, what chance do people have if they're not getting that information earlier on in their life? You're not going to think that it's an issue.
Yeah, yeah. It's the number one carcinogen. It's linked with 7 types of cancer.
Oh,
And people have known this since the 80s as well. But
yeah,
the alcohol industries and everyone else, they've kept it under wraps. And
yeah,
like you said, when they're advertising it, they're just showing you that little glimpse
yeah,
of the night. But the rest of the night and the day and all the ripple effects of that drinking
yeah.
is just very profound.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there's definitely, the government needs to step in more. The government definitely needs to be doing more, and it's frustrating that they're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were saying they don't want to let it go like they didn't want to let go tobacco because of all the tax it creates,
Yeah.
but they're actually running at a deficit because of it, because of the strain on the NHS.
Yes.
All the domestic violence is
Yeah.
an absolute joke.
Yeah.
They're they're not making any money on it. They're losing.
No.
They're using, I don't know if it's millions or billions, but it's a lot of money
Yeah.
because of the repercussions of what it causes. So
Yeah.
it's just an absolute farce. Don't get me started on it.
No, I know. I'm the same. It really just, yeah, it just frustrates me. It really frustrates me.
It does definitely. So what would, obviously, all your work that you do with recovery and the culture that we've been speaking about with drinking, the celebrations, the TV, the language, what's one cultural myth that you wish you could smash for good about alcohol, Leanne?
I think people have this perception that when you're socialising, it's got to involve alcohol, or celebrating, it has to involve alcohol. And I remember watching an episode of Loose Women, and it was Kelly Hopkins, she's some interior designer, and she'd been on and talking about she'd been through cancer and then had, recovered. And one of the panelists had said, were you out celebrating? And she was like, oh, I don't drink. And another of the panelists said, but you don't need alcohol to celebrate. And I was like, yeah, exactly. I think people assume that when you're socializing or you're celebrating, you need to have a drink, you need to have alcohol, because a lot of the time you go to a party and there's always alcohol. You go to a barbecue, there's always alcohol. That's just the way society is. I don't think I've ever been to a party or a celebration where it was non-alcoholic. There's always alcohol. So I think just making people aware that you can go out, and there's lots of people that go out and don't drink, but there are people that the thought of that just feels alien. But it's recognising that it's okay to go out and socialise with your friends and have a nice time without alcohol, because I always say that you maybe get the first hour or two, if you're the one that's not drinking, you maybe get the first hour or two of sensible conversation. And then if the rest of the party are drinking, then it all goes to shit, really. You know what I mean? And that's it, and then there's no sensible conversations. People are talking over each other. People are maybe falling out. And you think, well, okay, so I had the first hour or two of nice get together with my friends, but then after that, it's just all
That's the social. That's a nice social part where people are having real meaningful conversations. I always say
yeah,
this, and then 2 hours down the line, everyone's on repeat. Everyone's slurring their words,
yeah.
especially with blokes. They start fighting. They start, yeah. Someone says something and rubs someone else up the wrong way. It kicks off, and yeah, it's always good to go for a couple of hours and then slip away as a
Oh,
sober
yeah,
person.
definitely. And that's why a lot of the time I'll take the car so that I can just do that. When it gets to that point and people are annoying me, then I just jump in my car and go home.
We spoke earlier, Leanne, about your havening
Yeah,
and your Reiki. Could we just touch on that for a bit, please?
yeah,
So I had Mark Snell on a few weeks ago. I know you know Mark from the Coaching Masters, and
yeah.
he's really into his Reiki. I'm learning about Reiki as well myself. What is Reiki for my listeners? And yeah, just tell me more about it, please, because
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
find it fascinating.
it's like a universal energy healing. So energy healing. And I suppose years ago, I probably always had an interest in it and would read up about it, but didn't really take it any further. And then a couple of years ago, I did my Reiki 1 training and so I would just really use it on myself. At the moment, I'm not using it on anybody else. I'm just kind of using it on myself. And then last year I went to Malaga for the week to do my Reiki 2 training. Um, and so I'm not sort of certified yet for the Reiki 2 because I've got case studies to do, which again, I've just not had the time to do that. So it's kind of been put on hold a bit. I was hoping to do my master's this year, but I might have to just leave that till next year. But it's just a lovely, gentle sort of healing session, with somebody, and it can help to calm down anxieties. And I think there's definitely people that are really experienced. There's so many other aspects to it that hopefully over time I kind of learn more. And it's, again, I think it's a lot about your intuition and strengthening your intuition. And that's something that I'm currently working on through tarot. So I've started getting an interest in tarot recently. And I'm starting another course, a master's class in a couple of weeks, but it's a 6-week one. And it's just to learn about tarot. And so again, I've been like pulling daily. I'll pull cards for myself to try and strengthen my intuition, which I feel will help with the Reiki. So it's just a lovely healing energy. I know that, at night, sometimes I'll do it just before I go to my bed, and it just helps to relax and just center me before I go to sleep. I think
Is
some people
so
can do it in the morning.
so is it is it a form of meditation, Leanne, would you say? Is it
Um,
is it grounding? Is it
I
going
suppose
inward?
it's I
Obviously it's
suppose it's
going
all
inward.
of that kind of thing. I mean, the person receiving the Reiki basically just lies down, or you can do it seated, or there's different ways you can do it. But I mean, most of the time, the person just lying down. You've got some lovely music playing. You've got usually some incense burning, and sometimes people use crystals as well. So you can have some sort of crystal healing, and you basically you can sort of scan down somebody's body. So you can do hands on or hands off, or a mix of both. And it's just obviously you can go down somebody's body and feel where there might be say energy blocks, and you've got the chakras as well. So that's something else that I'm trying to get my head around. You've obviously got your 7 chakras, and I think it's just a really lovely thing to be able to do for somebody or for yourself. And I've tried it on like my pets before as well. If I'm sitting doing Reiki, sometimes Echo will come up and sit beside me, and I'll maybe just put my hands on her and just try and pass some of that say energy, onto her. So, but it's the universal energy, so it's not your own energy you're using when you're doing Reiki on somebody. So, and yeah, the energy goes where it's needed to go. So you can, sometimes if you can feel where somebody has a bit of a block, you can direct it, but the majority of the time it just goes where it needs to go. But it's fascinating, and I'm still again at the beginning of learning really all about it. Um, but it's just something that I think for myself I want to be able to do it.
Okay. And havening. What is havening?
So Havening is a psychosensory modality. So it's basically using touch. It falls under the same pillar as EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And
Yeah. Yeah. I did that in NLP.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
really good for processing traumatic memories.
Yeah.
Can be used for PTSD, trauma, anxieties, chronic pain, phobias, cravings. There's just so many things it is really good for doing. So I did the course a couple of years ago, got certified a couple of years ago now. Yeah, I think it'll be 2 years in March that I've been certified. And so I did 30 case studies in order to be certified. And then I've done a few over the past year, sort of privately with people. And it's basically using a touch technique. So it's either your arms, your hands, or your face. And the idea is it's a lot of distraction as well. So you're doing a lot of distraction, getting people to count backwards, singing songs. So the therapy itself is actually it can be quite a fun therapy. Obviously, you're dealing with some real, horrible things, but it's actually the way it works is, you get somebody to recall that memory, and then you start the havening process right away. So you're not keeping them in that period of distress for long, and then you work through different sort of sessions of havening, and each time you ask them to give you a distress score, and the idea is you get that distress score down to 0. And then when you get them to go back into the memory at the end, the emotional charge is no longer linked to that memory. So it's incredible. It's such, there's all the kind of neuroscience behind it. It's really interesting. It is a relatively new modality, but I think it's definitely something that I've had such good results with and want to try and do more of that going forward.
It sounds a bit like timeline therapy. Have you done that before in NLP?
No, no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's when you're going back to traumatic events or events that you think have obviously shaped your identity,
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, talking to your younger self, and yeah,
Ah,
and moving through things, and it's really, really good for like PTSD and stuff like that. But yeah, it sounds quite familiar.
yeah. It's really good, and it can be fun because, maybe be singing happy birthday or, shouting out fruits and vegetables. And I think people think it's quite an odd thing to do, but it's so powerful. It's such a powerful reality. So it's something I want to be working more on going forward.
Yeah, well, definitely. Well, is your next chapter, isn't it, Leanne? And that's what this
Yeah,
podcast is all about.
yeah, no, definitely. I think having a bit of a time just to regroup
Yeah,
and enjoy just having
being.
more time and just, because I think I'm now enjoying my job more because I'm allowing myself more time for me. So yeah, and I think you then get more clarity as to what you want to do going forward rather than just going from one thing to the next. Having a break to actually consider the next step, I think is really important. And I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
very
you've got
good
to
at doing
recharge
that.
your batteries
Yeah, I
before.
tend to just keep going. I'm like, right, I'll just do that now.
Yeah, it's hustle culture, isn't it?
Yeah,
And the thing is nowadays with the internet and all these different courses, there's so much out there. I think back in the day, people wouldn't have struggled like this. And
yeah,
it's having smartphones and it just being in your face all the time. And we
yeah,
spoke before, didn't we, about the algorithms, and
yeah.
it's relentless.
I
So
think you're
much.
sold the dream, a lot of these things. You're sold this dream that, you do this course and then you're going to get, you know, make a lot of money. You're sold that dream, and the reality is just not, it's not.
Yeah. It's not going to take months. It's going to take years. And that's why
Yeah,
so many people quit.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But when they're selling their courses, if they're telling you it's going to take years, they're not going to sell their courses.
exactly. Exactly. So, yes, it's frustrating.
So, what are your honest thoughts on entrepreneurship, and do you think it's for everyone?
I don't think it's for everyone. And I've tried it over the years, had a restaurant and, I've tried different wee things where years ago I would bought and sold bags and jewellery from around the world, also like fair trade, and would sell it. And so I have tried different things over the years, and I've always went back to just settling with my job and having that security of, I know, you know, I get regular money coming in. If I'm off sick, I get paid. If I'm on annual leave, I get paid. Granted, I don't get as many holidays as somebody that is maybe, you know, got their own business.
But you've got that security, which is very important to a lot of people.
Yeah. But I mean, because Gary, he's self-employed, he's got his own thing going on. And, we were speaking about this last night and just saying it's probably quite good that, I'm the one that's got the kind of regular income coming in because his will fluctuate. And but then there are times on a Sunday night when I'm, thinking, oh God, I'm up early, up at 5:45 tomorrow to go to work. And he's like, oh, I've just got a day at home tomorrow working on some stuff. And I'm like, God damn it. So there's times, or he's like, oh, actually, I'm going to give myself a day off tomorrow. I'm like, oh, that's nice. So I think there's pros and cons with both, really.
Yeah, there's always going to be with everything.
Yeah, but I think for me, because I love my job, that's the difference. I don't feel like going to my work is a real slog. I actually love my job. And so I think, well, why would I want to give that up? I've got a job that I enjoy what I do. I love the people I work with. And so yeah, why not? Why
Yeah,
give
just
that
do
up?
what just do what interests you. Try and tap into that intuition that you spoke about earlier, and follow your passions. And if you can make a business out of it, or or a side hustle in the future,
Yeah,
then it's all good, right?
exactly, exactly. But for the moment, yeah, I'm just enjoying having more time with Echo, who's delighted.
If there's anyone listening who's going through burnout, Leanne, or they're lost, like we spoke about earlier, what would you say to them?
I think if you do recognize it, or you start to feel that you're not yourself, and I think you do get that feeling, but you sometimes do just battle through it. Definitely speak to somebody. Definitely just start, opening up to somebody that you trust and take time out. If you can take time out just to rest up and switch off, because I found that really helped me. Actually, I was told maybe you need to take some time off. And I was like, I'm fine, I'm fine. I don't need time off. But I realised that actually once I started taking that time off that I needed it. And it took I think the first week I just sat on the couch quite a lot. Yeah, I just felt quite lost. And then, slowly things started to sort of fall into place a bit more. But I don't feel I had took as much time as I probably needed to, because then we came back to work and it was all short-staffed again and back into that same pattern. But I was able to recognise and, yeah, put the brakes on at times when I thought, well, actually, you're only human. There's only so much you can do. So I was definitely being kinder to myself.
Yeah, I think people pleasing is such a big thing. And if you're
Yeah,
not self aware, you don't know you're doing it.
yeah,
And I meet so many people who are people pleasers, and they're exhausted, and
yeah,
they're burnt out, and they don't even know it. And you pull them on it, and you tell them about it. You say, "Oh, do you think maybe you're doing too much?" You say yes to everything. You never say no. You don't set any boundaries, and they're in denial. If you can plant those seeds, and people can
yeah.
come round to it, but it's so common. I see it all the time.
But sometimes it's not even until, because I've felt more recently, I feel different. And I then realise, God, yeah, last year was a really tough year. And I didn't feel like myself last year. So it's, reflecting on that when you're through it more and realising, my God, yeah, this is the way that I should be feeling. And yet I recognise that a lot of last year I didn't feel like this. So yeah, so sometimes you need to experience it to then realise that going forward, okay, I'll pick up on it a lot earlier the next time.
What is the next chapter for you then, Leanne?
So to be honest, I think at the moment I'm just enjoying life, back catching up with friends and Yeah, starting my wee tarot course. I'm enjoying that. And again, it's just something that I'm doing for myself to try and strengthen that intuition. And so I'm realizing that I want to do things that I want to do for me and not because I feel that it's going to be part of a business. And knowing that takes pressure off because I know I'm doing it for enjoyment rather than for, oh, I need to do this so that I can maybe start a business. So, and I think the havening is definitely something I want to be doing more of this year. So that will be something at some point I'll be promoting, or advertising. But at the moment, yeah, I'm just enjoying just getting back into doing a bit of exercise again and catching up with friends and planning nice things with Gary. And so, yeah, just being me again, which is, I felt like I missed me last year.
It's all a balancing act, isn't it? It's so
Yeah,
easy to get carried away, and
yeah,
I find it really, really, really tough. I've got quite an obsessive personality, and
yeah.
I really, really struggle. And yeah, my wife pulls me on it quite often.
Because you
And
do really well with your morning runs, don't you? I mean, that's
yeah,
something
yeah, I
that,
love my morning routines. But
yeah,
that's such a positive thing for me. The
yeah,
endorphins and the dopamine I get from my ice plunges and stuff, that's
yeah,
so good for me. I feel it for the first half of the day. It
yeah,
sets me up so well.
yep,
But it's tough. I don't wake up every morning and want to go running, trust me.
yeah,
But like we were saying before, playing the take forward, I know the way I'm going to feel in the
yes,
long run. And it's there's so many pluses to it. And I absolutely, I don't know what I just can't imagine not doing it now. I built
yeah,
that identity up so much. We were talking about that earlier.
yeah.
But
And it
yeah,
just becomes an automatic thing you do, isn't it? I think when you
yes.
get to that habit, then that's just something you do. You don't think about it.
Yeah, that subconscious,
Yeah.
those subconscious habit loops that you were talking about before. So, so true. Where can people find you, Leanne, if they want to connect and later on down the line, obviously with your Hayden and your Reiki?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. I think it's Leanne, free spirit. I think, and then
I'll put it in the show notes anyway.
and then on Facebook, I think I'm just Leanne Murphy. So I'm just my name on the Facebook. I think I'm not very good with all the social media stuff, as you can imagine.
Yeah, yeah. I'll put it in the show notes, Leanne, anyway. But thank you so
Yeah,
much for your time today and being so open and honest and sharing your story. And just reminding us that it's okay to change direction at any time. I've wanted to get you on ever since I started the next chapter because I knew how powerful your story was, and obviously working with addiction and recovery, I
yeah.
just knew that you'd be a great guest. So thank you so so much for your time today. I really really appreciate it, Leanne.
Well,
Thank you so
thank
much.
you, Luke. Honestly, I've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed myself. So thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you, Leanne.